when a B-17 tail fell with a gunner inside. The skies over Europe were painted with fire and smoke, and the roar of engines filled the air. It was the winter of 1944, and the Second World War raged on. High above the battlefield, a squadron of B-17 bombers flew in tight formation. They were called Flying Fortresses, armed to the teeth and carrying brave young men with a single mission: to strike deep into enemy territory. One of those B-17s was nicknamed Eagle's Cry. It was an old plane, its fuselage patched with rivets and scars from countless missions. The tail gunner was a young man named Peter Crane. Barely 21, Peter had joined the war not out of hatred for the enemy but a sense of duty and a hope for peace. His father had taught him that courage wasn't about being unafraid but about standing firm despite the fear. Peter's post was in the tail of the aircraft, a cramped, cold position isolated from the rest of the crew. His job was to defend the bomber's vulnerable rear, a critical task during enemy attacks. It was lonely, but Peter found solace in knowing that his role protected his comrades. On the fateful day, Eagle's Cry was part of a bombing raid over Germany. The mission was perilous, with flak cannons and enemy fighters awaiting them. As they approached their target, the formation was ambushed by a swarm of enemy aircraft. The sky erupted in chaos. Peter gripped his twin .50 caliber machine guns tightly. "Here they come," he shouted over the intercom, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. He began firing, tracing the darting fighters with bursts of bullets. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rocked the plane. A shell had struck the tail section. Peter felt a jolt as the tail of Eagle's Cry was severed from the rest of the aircraft. In an instant, he was spiraling downward, separated from his crew, trapped in the tail of a falling B-17. Time seemed to slow as Peter plummeted. He felt a mix of terror and surreal calm. Through the shattered glass, he saw the sky, the clouds, and the distant ground rushing up to meet him. Thoughts raced through his mind. His family, his crewmates, and the irony of dying so far from home. But Peter wasn't ready to give up. His father's words echoed in his mind. Courage isn't about the absence of fear. It's about facing it head-on. As the tail section tumbled, Peter assessed his situation. He still had his parachute, though his position in the tail made it almost impossible to escape. He refused to succumb to despair. With great effort, he unstrapped himself from his seat and crawled toward the edge. The wind roared around him, threatening to rip him apart. Peter managed to pull himself to the jagged edge of the tail section. Below him the earth loomed closer. With trembling hands, he gripped the ripcord of his parachute. He knew this was his only chance. "This is it," he thought, and with a final prayer, he leapt into the void. For a moment he was weightless, free falling through the sky. Then he yanked the cord, and the parachute deployed with a loud snap. The force nearly wrenched his shoulders out of their sockets, but it slowed his descent. Peter floated downward, his heart pounding. Below he saw a patch of forest. He aimed for it, hoping the trees would cushion his landing. Peter crashed through the canopy, the branches tearing at his flight suit. He hit the ground hard but alive. Dazed and in pain, he lay there for a moment, staring at the sky. The tail section of Eagle's Cry had vanished, leaving only smoke trails in its wake. As he gathered his strength, Peter realized how fragile life was. He had survived a fall from thousands of feet, but his comrades might not have been so lucky. Tears welled in his eyes as he thought of them. Peter found a hiding spot in the forest, knowing he was deep in enemy territory. Over the next few days, he evaded patrols and searched for a way back to Allied lines. Despite the fear and loneliness, he clung to hope. His father's wisdom became his guiding light. Even in the darkest moments, there's always a choice to keep moving forward. One evening, as Peter scavenged for food near a small village, he was discovered by a German farmer and his family. The farmer, an older man with kind eyes, didn't report Peter. Instead, he offered him bread and water. "You are just a boy," the man said in broken English. "This war, it makes us all lose something." Peter was stunned by the kindness. He realized that humanity could transcend even the deepest divides. The farmer's family risked their lives to shelter him for a night, giving him directions to reach the Allied front. When Peter finally made it back to his unit weeks later, he carried more than just the scars of his ordeal. He carried a new perspective. Peter's story became one of survival, courage, and the enduring power of compassion. He learned that bravery wasn't about being fearless but about acting despite fear. He discovered that even in war, kindness could bloom in the unlikeliest places. Years later, Peter would tell his story to young people, emphasizing the importance of hope, resilience, and humanity. "We all fall," he would say, "but it's how we rise that defines us." And so, the tale of the B-17 tail gunner who fell from the sky became a symbol of the unbreakable spirit of the human heart.